Hi guys, this is Connie. Back for almost the end. It's almost over. Connie reads Another Fine Myth, Chapter 25. A quote. Just because you've beaten a sorcerer doesn't mean you've beaten a sorcerer. Toth A. Amon. I feel bad I don't know the reference. Oh well. Oz, Istvan said sternly, there comes a time when your humor wears a little thin. I'm not kidding, Istvan, Oz assured him. You've lost your powers. Go ahead and try something. Anything. Istvan hesitated. He closed his eyes. Nothing happened. You see, Oz shrugged. You've lost your powers. All of them. And don't look to your associates for help. They're all in the same boat. You mean we've really won? I blurted out. The full impact of what was transpiring finally started to sink in. That's right, kid. Oz suddenly leaned forward and clapped Frumple on the shoulder. Congratulations, Frumple, he exclaimed. I've got to admit, I didn't think you could do it. What? Blinked the devil. I'm just glad this squares our debt with you, Oz continued without pause. You won't try to back out on it now, will you? Frumple? Istvan's voice was dark with menace. Did you do this to us? I, Frumple stammered. Go ahead, Frumple, gloat, Oz encouraged. He can't do anything to you now. Besides, you can teleport out of here any time you want. No, he can't, snarled Higgins, and his arm flashed forward. I caught a glimpse of a small ball flying through the air before it exploded against Frumple's forehead in a cloud of purple dust. But, began Frumple, but it was too late. In mid-gesture, his lips became rigid, and his face froze. We had another statue on our hands. Good move, Higgins, applauded Oz. It wouldn't be too much trouble, Oz, interrupted Istvan. Could you explain... Oh, I got that wrong. If it wouldn't be too much trouble, Oz, interrupted Istvan, could you explain what's going on here? Ah, said Oz. Therein lies the story. This sounds familiar, Quigley mumbled. I poked him in the ribs with my elbow. We weren't out of this yet. It seems that Frumple learned about your plans from Throckwaddle. Apparently, he was afraid that if you succeed in taking over the dimensions, you would implement price controls, thereby putting him out of business as a merchant. You know how those devils are. The imps snorted. Istvan nodded thoughtfully. Anyway, he decided to try to stop you. To accomplish this, he blackmailed the four of us into assisting him. We were to create... Oh! Find a way to keep that sitting where it's supposed to stay. Anyway, he decided to try to stop you. To accomplish this, he blackmailed the four of us into assisting him. We were to create a diversion while he effected the actual attack. Well, what did he do? Prompted Higgins. He drugged the wine, explained Oz. Don't you remember? When? Asked Brockhurst. When he dropped the phony crystal into the jug. Remember? He drank from the jug too, exclaimed Higgins. That's right, but he had taken an antidote in advance. Oz finished with a flourish. So we're stuck here, Brockhurst spat in disgust. Brockhurst spat in disgust. You know, Oz, Istvan said slowly, it occurs to me that even if everything happened exactly as you described it, you and your friends here played a fairly large part in the plot. You're right, Istvan, Oz admitted, but I'm prepared to offer you a bargain. What kind of bargain? Istvan asked suspiciously. It's in two parts. First, to clear Tonda and myself from having opposed you in your last bid for power. I can offer transportation to you and your allies out of this dimension. Said Istvan. And the second part? For the second part, I can give you the ultimate vengeance to visit on Frumple here. In exchange, I want your promise you'll bear no grudge against the four of us for our part in today's misfortune. Pardon for four in exchange for vengeance on one, Istvan grunted. That doesn't sound like much of a deal. I think you're overlooking something, Istvan, Oz cautioned. What's that? You've lost your powers. That makes it 4 of us against 3 of you. Look at your 4, Brockhurst sneered. A woman, a half-trained apprentice, a broken-down demon hunter, and a pervert. Broken down, Quigley scolded. Easy, Quigley. And to you, Tonda? Oz ordered. Your three are nothing to brag about either. Two imps who've lost their powers, and a fat madman. Surprisingly, this seemed to revive Istvan's humor. The imps were not amused. Now look, Oz, Higgins began. If you want to fight, you miss the point entirely, gentlemen, Oz said soothingly. I'm trying to avoid a fight. I'm merely trying to point out that if it comes to a fight, you'll lose. Not necessarily, Brockhurst bristled. Inescapably, Oz insisted. Look, if we fight and we win, you lose. On the other hand, if we fight and we lose, you lose. How do you figure that? Higgins asked suspiciously. Simple. If you kill us, you'll have lost your only way to get out of this dimension. You'll be stuck forever on Claw. By my figuring, that's losing. We're in agreement there, Brockhurst mumbled. Oh, stop this bickering, Istvan interrupted with a chuckle. Oz is right, as usual. He may have lost a couple of fights, both magical and physical, but I've never heard of anyone out-arguing him. Then it's a deal? Oz asked. It's a deal, Istvan said firmly, as if we had any choice in the matter. They shook hands ceremoniously. I noticed the imps were whispering together and shooting dark glances in our direction. I wondered if a deal with Istvan was binding on the imps. I wondered if a handshake was legally binding in a situation such as this. But most of all, I wonder what Oz had up his sleeve this time. Well, Oz, Istvan asked, where's this escape clause you promised? Right here, he said, fishing a familiar object from inside his shirt and tossing it to Istvan. A D-hopper? Istvan cried with delight. I haven't seen one of these since... What is it? Higgins interrupted. Istvan scowled at him. It's our ticket off this dimension, he exclaimed grudgingly. How does it work? Brockhurst asked suspiciously. Trust me, gentlemen, Istvan's distasteful expression gave lie to the joviality of his words. It works. He turned to Oz again. Imps, he mumbled to himself. You hired 'em, Oz commented unsympathetically. So I did. Well, what is this diabolical vengeance you have in mind for Frumple? That's easy, smiled Oz. Use the D-hopper and take him back to Deva. Why Deva? Istvan asked. Because he's been banned from Deva, Higgins answered in the light dawning. And the devils are unequaled at melting out punishment for those who break their laws, Brockhurst finished with an evil smile. Why was Frumple banned from Deva? Tandid whispered to me. I don't know, I confided. Maybe he gave a refund or something. I don't believe it, she snorted. I mean, he is a devil. Oz, Istvan smiled regarding the D-hopper. I've always admired your sense of humor. It's been nastier than mine. What do you expect from a pervert? Snorted Brockhurst. Watch your mouth, imp, I snarled. He was starting to get on my nerves. Then it's settled, Istvan chortled, clapping his hands together gleefully. Brockhurst, Higgins, come gather around Frumple here. We're off to Deva. Right now? Asked Brockhurst. With things here so unsettled, Higgins added, glancing at us again. Oh, we won't be long, Istvan assured him. There's nothing here we can't come back and pick up later. That's true, admitted Brockhurst, staring at me thoughtfully. Istvan? It was Quigley. Are you addressing me? Istvan asked with a mock formality. Yes, Quigley looked uncomfortable. Am I to understand you are all about to depart for some place completely populated with demons? That is correct, Istvan nodded. Would you mind if I accompanied you? What? I exclaimed, genuinely startled. Why? Well, Quigley said hesitantly, if there's one thing I've learned about this day, is that I really know very little about demons. Hear, hear, mumbled Oz. I'm undecided as to whether or not to continue in my chosen profession, Quigley continued. But in any case, it behooves me to learn more about demons. What better place would be for such a study than in a land completely populated with demons? Why should we burden ourselves with the demon hunter of all things? Brockhurst appealed to Istvan. Maybe we could teach him a few things about demons, Higgins suggested in an overly innocent voice, giving his partner a covert poke in the side. What? You know, you're right, Higgins. Brockhurst was suddenly smiling again. Good, exclaimed Istvan. We'll make a party of it. In that case, purred Tonda, you won't mind if I tag along too. What? Exclaimed Brockhurst. Why? Challenged Higgins. To help, of course, she smiled. I want to be there when you teach Quigley about demons. Maybe I can help him learn. Wonderful, wonderful, Istvan beamed, overreading the imp's objections. The more the merrier. Oz, Skeeve, will you be joining us? Not this time, thanks, Oz replied before I could open my mouth. The kid here and I have a few things to go over that won't wait. Like what? I asked. Shut up, kid, Oz hissed, then smiled again at the group. You all run along. We'll be here when you come back. We'll be looking forward to it, Brockhurst smiled grimly. Goodbye, Oz. Skeeve, Tonda waved. I'll look for you next time around. But Tonda, I began. Don't worry, lad, Quigley assured me. I'll make sure nothing happens to her. Behind him, Tonda shot me a bawdy wink. Oz, Istvan chuckled. I do enjoy your company. We must work together more often. He adjusted the settings on the D-hopper and prepared to trigger it. Goodbye, Istvan, Oz smiled and waved. Remember me. There was a rippling in the air, and they were gone. All of them. Oz, I said urgently. Did you see how those imps looked at us? Oh yeah, kid. I told you they were vicious little creatures. But what are we going to do when they get back? Don't worry about it, kid. Don't worry about it, I shrieked. We've got to... Because they aren't coming back, Oz finished. That stopped me. But when they get done on Deva... That's the joke, kid, Oz grinned me. They aren't going to Deva. Ooh, that's the end of chapter 25. Be careful with that and enjoy, please and thank you. We've only got like 4 more pages left to go. So I'll see you in the next chapter.